Hi, my name is Patricia and this is Buzz and Bark Animals, and today I'm not going to be doing a Reiki session, although if you want, my face is really pale. If you want, you can look on my channel and you can find lots of remote Reiki videos and also some sound healing videos if that's what you want to do. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell a story of something that happened recently. I don't know why I look so pale on here. I also channel spirits besides being an animal communicator and a Reiki practitioner. And I've been channeling the spirit of Rachel Carson. And Rachel Carson was the author of The Silent Spring, and she was a scientist, and she had discovered that DDT was killing bird populations and also causing human health problems, etc. And eventually DDT got banned, but then there have been other chemicals that have been used on farms, on forest, and other things on vegetation, and also pesticides that are extremely toxic. And as I'm saying this, there is a robin on the window staring directly at me, and it comes around when I'm channeling Rachel Carson especially. And her main bird or mascot was the robin. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story in a minute, but remember to like, subscribe, share, comment. Nobody ever does, really. But it'd be nice if somebody did. So I'm going to share a story. And I'm going to share the short version of the story because it can go back really long, and and I'll give the link to the actual channeling session that I'm going to mention. So in April, I was in a car going to a medical appointment, and we passed by some agricultural land, and there was a farmer who was spraying a field, and the car got sprayed. And then the next day I channeled Rachel Carson, and then when I was done channeling, my shoulder froze. And my shoulder froze because I have a condition called mast cell activation syndrome. And even a small whiff of something, like a very minute exposure to a chemical, especially herbicides and pesticides, can cause all kinds of histamine going off in the body and can create some severe pain and joint issues, nerve issues, etc. It's an extremely painful condition. So when I was channeling her, she brought up the robins, and I swear to God, this bird is like coming by and is just like staring at me and flying and then coming back and staring at me. Anyways, so I had the condition, and in the channeling session, she was saying that there was going to be an event coming up that was going to wake people up, and it was going to wake up the everyday people. And so last Friday, which would have been May 22nd, I'm in Oak Harbor, Washington. The city sent out crew, and they sprayed 540 acres of sidewalks. Not like every single sidewalk within that range, but definitely a lot of sidewalks and across the street from where I live, with glyphosate. Now, if you go online, you will find two stories about glyphosate. One of them is that it's that it's low toxic and safe around children and animals and birds. And you'll see things saying that it doesn't kill birds, and it doesn't kill bees, and it doesn't kill, all these different creatures. And then there's another story which links glyphosate, especially in the form of Roundup by the company Monsanto. There's been many lawsuits, and people have won the lawsuits. At first they were losing the lawsuits, and then eventually they started winning the lawsuits for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's also linked to one of the causes of lymphoma in dogs. And tens of thousands of dogs, at least I think it's in the US, die from lymphoma every year. That's a lot of dogs. A lot of dogs. And especially during a time when vet bills are like something like 200% higher than they were maybe 5 years ago. So people are very strapped, financially having to help an animal with cancer. They may not be able to afford it. But it's not the only cause of lymphoma in dogs, but it's one of the causes. Other causes are other environmental pollutions, and also EMFs is being linked. Now, if there's exact proof of that, or confirmed proof. I don't know, but you can definitely go and research it. So the channeling session had foretold this event that happened here where I live. So I had already gone to another community, and I thought I was safe here. Like, okay, well, I'll just stay at home and I won't go by the farmlands or whatever, and then I won't get sprayed again. Because I was really afraid because of all the pain that I went through. I didn't want to have to, it was like 3 days of pain, and I didn't want to have to go through that again. And I didn't even know I was going to get, I have use of my shoulder again. I didn't even know that was going to happen. I did get some help from some healers. So the short story is that she had predicted, so I channeled her, and I will give you a link. I channeled her, and she predicted that something was going to happen, and that there will be dead birds. So yesterday I went into the yard because I felt like I needed to go and do some sound healing in the yard. I do that ever so often, where I put this big singing bowl on the earth, and then I tone the earth, and then I do the plants and all the other stuff. Well, I found a dead robin. And immediately, okay, so it's spring and birds can die from so many different reasons, right? They can die from viruses, they can die from hitting a window, they can die from, predation to the nest, like another bird coming in and disrupting the nest, like a crow or an eagle or a hawk. Or they can die from being poisoned. Well, my intuition said this bird was poisoned. And it didn't have any damage on its body, so it didn't have if a hawk or somebody else had gotten it, it would have been mangled. So this bird was not mangled. It wasn't a cat that got it. We don't even have any cats in this yard. And I go, well, what a coincidence, right? Like they had sprayed just not very far from where this bird had died. And so I had asked people, through Facebook around the city if they find any dead creatures within the area that was sprayed, to photograph it and to report it. And Rachel said that there's going to be many, there's going to be many birds that are going to die from this. And what's going to happen is there's going to get citizen action, and it's going to be done in a positive way. And it's going to stir, worldwide, not just because of this incident. This type of incident is happening all over the place right now, like popcorn. But it's reached the point where people are no longer going to tolerate this. Like in the past, people could be apathetic. They could say, well, it's somebody else's problem. I don't want to deal with it. And now it's become too personal. And so everyday people are going to get together. They're going to come up with solutions. It's not going to be like that one, person or the one couple that takes on the world. It's going to be like whole communities, like an Earth Day sort of situation. And it's already starting to happen. So I only did this channeling session, I think it was around April 21st. So it's been just over a month. And what she predicted is already happening. And I'm going to have to keep channeling her because I want to know where this is going. But I just want to say that if you are going through something similar in your community or your city or whatever you live, remain mindful. Don't become hostile or aggressive or use tough language, because as soon as you do that, no one's listening. Like the people that you're trying to reach are going to shut their ears because nobody likes conflict. Nobody wants to be shamed. Nobody wants to be blamed. And so it has to be in a mindful way. And so you might want to look into different mindfulness meditations or teachers or whatever it is if you feel like you're going to be advocating for something. It could be any kind of advocating for the environment, for animals, whatever it is for humans. Then that mindfulness is going to be extremely important. And I do have some mindfulness articles on my website, Metaphysics, 4 Everyday Living. Okay, so now I'm going to get into today's topic, which is animal communication. Again, I'm not going to be doing Reiki today. And if you would like Reiki, then please go check out my other videos because they haven't had a lot of traffic and they're good sessions. So Okay, so animal communication, I'm just going to briefly, for people who don't know what it is, I'm just going to give a brief description, how it can help you if you have pets. And I think I'm going to leave it at that. That's all I'm going to cover in this video. So I'm all of a sudden getting chills too, like it's really windy. And this topic is giving me chills too. It's just sort of triggering my nervous system. I mean, not the animal communication, but the thing on Rachel Carson. Okay, so I'm going to do a little of this first. Okay, to put it in a nutshell, animal communication is telepathy. And telepathy is getting bigger and more popular as far as a topic. So you might have heard of the telepathic tapes. I think I only watched one of those myself. And you'll hear that only certain people are able to use telepathy. It's, rare if you can communicate with animals. And actually, it is a natural ability that we all have. And you might already be doing it. Now, you may already be doing it because we are always communicating telepathically. Now, we may not be conscious that we're communicating telepathically, and what we want to do is become conscious of that ability. So telepathy is, well, it's a lot of things. It uses all of the clairsenses. So the clairsenses are clairaudience, which is hearing. There's the one where you have clairsentience, where you just know something. You just like immediately know something. There's the one where you have smells. That one's rare. You don't hear about this one much, where people can smell things. So they may smell a spirit, like somebody died in the family and they wore like a rose-scented perfume, and then they smell in the room a rose-scented perfume because that spirit's around. So that's one of the other ways. So it's basically the five senses enhanced into a clair, and a clair is a psychic ability. So with telepathy, we could be using any of those. So you could encounter an animal, a wild or a pet, and you get a knowing. Like you just all of a sudden know something about them, like, oh, I think they're sick. And you're like, there's no physical sign that they're sick, but you just get the sense, right? And you take the animal to an animal doctor, and the animal doctor confirms what it is that you had, that moment of knowing. Or it could be, again, that you smell something, you see something. People can see spirits, they can see things. They have like movies in their head of events that are going to come up. Or and then the other one is feeling. So you can feel, it's very empathic, where you feel what another creature feels. So for me, I don't really get the smell. I don't really get I don't see the visuals. For me, it's knowing, it's sensing, and it's feeling. So if I'm tuning into an animal, I might feel a burning in my hip. Like I didn't feel a burning in my hip until I tuned into the animal. So then I go further into this, I don't know, I guess I could call it like psychic research or something. Or I go further into it, and if the person with the pet is there, I'll ask them questions, right? And then I'll ask the animal questions. So if I'm asking the person questions, it's more of a psychic reading. If I'm asking the animal questions, it's an animal communication. Like if I'm going directly to the animal, then I'm communicating with the animal. If I'm talking to the human, then it's psychic work, right? Where like, like where is this animal? Like this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing this room. It's got red carpet. There's a blue couch. There's a blanket on the floor, and the dog is, doing whatever. And they'll say, yeah, we have a room that is carpeted. It has a blue couch and blah, 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 blah. And so that's more of the psychic work. Unless I'm tuning into the animal and the animal is showing me that. So it's a difference between me getting a psychic impression and me directly communicating with the animal. So an animal communicator communicates directly with the animal. So they're going into a semi-trance, I would hope. And then they're putting protection around themselves and protection around the animal, and then they're asking the animal permission to communicate. And then one of the first questions an animal communicator can ask an animal is, what's on your mind? Like, what is the thing that is most important to you right now? Right? And then prior to that, you could warm up the animal by asking simple questions. Like, where do you live? What's your favorite food? Give me an idea of, whatever environment they're in, right? And then say they're having a behavioral issue. And I like to give this example of a cat that I had read about somewhere, where the cat was peeing in the house. And the person with the cat was just like, ready to basically give the cat up to a shelter or something. And then they go to an animal communicator, and the animal communicator talks to the cat, and the cat is being bullied by the neighbor cat. So when the window curtains are open, this neighbor cat was coming over and bullying this cat that was in the house. Well, the cat in the house was becoming territorial, but also frightened. So the cat started peeing all over the house. And then I think the problem was resolved because the person was, they had an awareness, oh, this neighbor cat's coming over and it's harassing my cat. And then the animal communicator is also able to give some little bit of coaching to the cat, like, well, when this cat comes over, we understand. And sometimes all the cat needs is some empathy, right? So, by the animal communicator acknowledging that and go, oh, I'm so sorry you're going through that. And then, validating that cat's experience, sometimes that's enough. But in this case, they ended up just having to close the curtains during the day when the people were at work, because that way the cat wouldn't see the other cat coming by and bullying it. And I think it resolved the situation, but I can't remember. This is many years ago I saw this story. But it is an example of how animal communication works. So some behaviors are going to be harder to deal with, and you would need a trainer, especially in the case of a dog. But then there are some breeds that are just going to have certain behaviors, and that is a matter of research. So if you have a hunting dog, well, they're going to hunt, right? If you have a digging dog, like a terrier, they're going to dig in your yard. And so you've got to figure out, well, this dog is naturally a digger, so where can I put this dog where, maybe there's some area in the yard or wherever where they can dig, right? And then you train them, okay, you can dig in that area, but you can't dig over here, or whatever it is. So the animal communicator does not do training, although there may be a combination where an animal communicator is also a trainer, like a dog trainer, or maybe a wild animal, like a sanctuary animal trainer or something like that. So ever so often there are those people, but your typical animal communicator does not do training. What they do, and they're not psychologists either, what they do is they talk to the animal and they use telepathy. And again, telepathy is using those 5 senses enhanced in a psychic way. Although animal communicators don't normally call themselves psychic unless they also work as a pet psychic. And again, psychic is more dealing with the human part, and the animal communication is communicating directly with the animal using these heightened senses, we should say. So again, for me, it's the knowing. Like, I can look at an animal and I can just pick up images. They're like little movies that I see, like going across the screen. And I can communicate that way. And then the other thing is I can feel. So I can, again, tune into an animal and I can feel if there's vibration or heat, or I don't know why I'm thinking of the word swirling, but or iciness, or I can feel pain. Like if they have a headache, I can feel it in my head, or I can feel my shoulder tensing. I can feel like my body's full of arthritis if the animal has arthritis, or I could get like in the organs, I can get like heat or cold, or again, different sensations. And then I just relay, like I just take a bunch of notes, or I record it while I'm doing the session. Like I make a recording like an MP3. And that's how I'm able to do it. And each animal communicator has their own method. Some will just take notes. Some will use, recording device. Some will meet with the animal physically in person. Others will do it remotely. Some will just have a photograph sent to them in the mail, and then they'll just sit down with the photograph, or they'll have it sent to them through email and they'll print it out, and then they'll just work with the photograph. Some animal communicators don't use any image at all because they say that they're tuning into the higher spirit of that animal. I don't do that. I actually tune into the photograph. And so there's so many different methods out there. And animal communicators can help with so many different behavioral issues. And some of them will specialize, such as separation anxiety, such as aggression, or end of life, which is a really big one, or helping an animal through a disease, because it's scary for them, just like it would be scary for you if you had cancer, or if any disease is scary to have, right? And so an animal communicator can give them support as they're going through these phases. And also the animal communicator is the bridge between the guardian of that animal and the animal. So they're like the interpreter. So they will get the information from the animal and give it to the human, and then the human will have some course of action to take, whether it's, you need to take the animal to the vet, or maybe you could look into this or to that, or whatever it is. Here's a trainer that you could go look up, or maybe they need like an animal psychologist or a behaviorist, or the different people are out there, or maybe there's somebody that they're missing. Like maybe there's a family member that went away to college, or is in the military or something like that, and they need reassurance that sometimes the people don't come back, but sometimes they do come back. But they need to be able to reach out to those people that the animal is missing. So those are some things that animal communicators do. Now, some animal communicators will have a healing background. So they'll be like, I do Reiki, and some of them will do cranial sacral or acupuncture or chiropractic or homeopathy, or different holistic care. Now, the reason I mentioned holistic is because your conventional vets aren't usually open to animal communication. They're not open to Reiki. They're not open to a lot of these quote unquote alternative. And also, animal communication should never be used as a substitute for medical, because that is not what an animal communicator does, unless they happen to be a vet, right? Or they happen to be a holistic healer of some kind. Otherwise, they are not able to, they don't diagnose, they don't treat. It's actually illegal. And some places might not even allow you to go to an animal communicator, depending on where you are and what the rules are and what the laws are and all this other stuff. So that's what animal communicators do. And I think I pretty much covered everything that I was going to cover. Oh, the last part. So when should you, or could you, or would you hire an animal communicator? Well, animal communicators, we're a little bit pricey. Just because of the work we're doing. It's kind of a strain on the body. It's not like Reiki, where you're beaming energy out and you're receiving more energy, and so your body's being vitalized. With animal communication, it actually pulls energy out of you, and it's very exhausting work. And it does take a great deal of sensitivity and skills. So, like I said, anybody can communicate with an animal, but not everybody can communicate with an animal at a skillful level. And I also said that animal communicators are using telepathy, and that we're all using telepathy. Well, the way we're using telepathy is that when we talk, so when I'm talking right now, at the same time I'm talking to you, I've got visuals going on in my brain. I've got physiology happening, chemical reactions in the body, electrical reactions in the body. So all of those things are happening. And so on a very deep subconscious level, we pick all of that up from somebody else we're communicating with, who we're hanging out with. And communication can even be in silence, right? Communication, we always think, oh, it's people talking to each other. No, sometimes it's just like monks, when they're all in silence meditating, are communicating with each other, right? So communication is not just sound, it's also silence. And we are, through our body language, again, through the chemistry, the electricity, all these things, physiology, all these things that are happening within us are sending out signals. And with telepathy, we're picking up, we're receiving, and we're giving back out, based on what we're receiving, we're giving other signals out. And that's telepathy. And we're all doing it. We're sending movies back and forth, but we're not consciously aware of it. We're saying one thing and feeling something else, and it creates tension. And so somebody may not completely trust the other person because the person's saying one thing, but then they're feeling in their body that something's off. That is all telepathy, but that's all done more subconsciously. So if you want to do it consciously, then you have to practice. And you practice by developing presence and awareness. And that means that you would, and I know a lot of these teachers that teach animal communication teach meditation. And the reason why is because when you meditate and you silence your mind, you don't completely silence it. That's kind of a misnomer. But when you slow things down, you notice things. So there's all these like conversations that are going on in your mind or your brain. And when you meditate, you hear those conversations. You hear your body screaming at you. You hear, like your toe starts hurting, or some problem that you haven't been able to solve pops up, or these things that you have not had an awareness of that have been happening in your environment. Like maybe your environment is poisoned by something, and you have no awareness of it, but then when you're meditating, all of a sudden you're getting these images and you're getting these thoughts and things, and then you say, oh, I need to turn into my environment. I need to find out what's going on, right? But if you're just rushing around and you're not sitting down and you're not developing presence and you're not developing awareness, then you don't know what you're even doing telepathically, right? So if you want to become conscious and use telepathic abilities in a mindful way, then that does involve slowing down. And it involves finding out what's going on in your mind, what's going on in your body, like doing a body scan, or, so many different ways to get in touch with what's going on inside you. Because before I started looking into mindfulness and doing these different practices, I had no awareness, right? I go, why is that person being hostile toward me? Like, why is this happening? Why is that happening? Well, it's because I was putting out signals. In many of those cases, I will take responsibility for my own thoughts and my own, however I was carrying my body language, or maybe my posture was, like slumped over or whatever it was. And when I would be in those states, then I would get certain reactions from people. And I've noticed that if I was being overly vulnerable, or, not feeling very confident, or, going out into the world, again, with really bad posture and looking confused and everything else, I would run into somebody that was hostile, maybe not violent, but hostile, or just really toxic in some way. And so when we become more aware of what our body's doing and what our mind's doing and what we're thinking and what we're feeling, then we're clearing a path so that we can become more consciously telepathic. But not only that, when you have more of an awareness of where you're at, then you take responsibility for that. Like, oh, I probably shouldn't go out in public today because I'm feeling vulnerable, or I'm feeling confused, or I'm feeling foggy, or I'm not at my best, right? Now, if you have to go out, you have to go out. Or if you have to go to work, you have to go to work, right? But to have that awareness of where your weaknesses are. And so if you're going to be doing animal communication, then you need to develop these gifts, because this is the part of the animal communication that keeps you safe. Because if you're not knowing where you're at with your physicality, with your mind, and you go to someone's house to communicate with their cat or their dog, you may get attacked. Because you're sending them confusing messages if they're an animal that has some mental challenges, or if they've had trauma in the past, or they've been around a lot of confused, anxious people, then there's a good chance that if you walk in there anxious, if you walk in there and you don't even realize that you're in this state of mind, they could become aggressive. And I've actually had that happen to me when I've been on walks. And, some of these dogs are just aggressive to everybody, but sometimes it will be somebody's dog who's never aggressive, or they say they're never aggressive. They always say that. But it'll be a dog that's normally not aggressive, and they'll get aggressive toward me. And then I'll have to tune into, like, well, what was I thinking? Like, what was going on with my body? What was my body posture? Am I holding my energy in, or am I spilling it all over the place? And so on. So for people who are going to become animal communicators, it's best to go train with somebody with a shamanic background, or mindfulness. Coaching could be another way to go, as far as becoming more mindful for yourself, or a teacher. And then if you're lucky, you can find an animal communicator teacher who combines all of those things. And then you can also do that not just to be a professional animal communicator, but to communicate with your own pets. And also, like this robin over here, you can come over and communicate with this robin and ask it what's going on, because it's just going crazy out there. Although we do have a dead robin in our backyard, and I noticed that the robins were going over to the dead robin, and I need to get somebody to clean it, that remove the bird. That sounds terrible, but I don't think we can bury the bird because it might be full of poison. Yeah, but anyways, the birds, I'm wondering if they do like bird funerals, because crows do that. And I started feeling really sad when I saw the one robin going over to look at the other robin, the one that was dead. And they may be connected to each other. They may be mates, or they may be family, or cousins. I don't know, because we don't ban the birds here, so I don't know like if they're related or not. So that would be a research study with a university. So anyways, that is my talk for today. I'm keeping it shorter. I was going to keep it 10 minutes. It's now 30 minutes, so I'm going to end this now. But I just want to make you aware that there are so many different ways we can support our communities and animals and birds, both wild and also people's domestic animals, as well as each other. And then as far as animal communication, it's based on telepathy, and it is an ability that we all have. And to develop that, you would need to develop your mindfulness. Now, if you're somebody who's mastered mindfulness, then you're already using telepathy in a conscious way. And to keep doing that, because we're going to get to the point where this is going to be our main form of communication. Now, I don't know when that's going to happen, maybe 20, maybe 100 years from now, I'm not sure. But we're moving in a direction where we are all becoming more telepathic. And we are already using it, but we're not always consciously aware that we're using it. And that's why you could think that you're in a good mood, and you don't understand why people are acting kind of grumpy or whatever towards you. Now, sometimes they just might be in that state of mind, but if you're meeting one person after the other during a course of a day and they're all acting kind of negative towards you, then you got to tune in and find out what's going on, right? Because once you can't correct their behavior, you can only correct where you're at in space and time. You can only correct. Again, you don't want to be walking down a street and getting attacked by a dog, because your mind was kind of in a place that you were sending out signals that disturbed the animal, and then they became anxious, right? And a lot of animals have anxiety. A lot of dogs have anxiety. I've met so many people with dogs that have anxiety. So it is out there, or it's an agitated dog, or it's a dog that's had a lot of trauma, like maybe it's a rescued dog. And, rescued cats. Same thing, you could be walking into somebody's house and all of a sudden some cat's snarling at you. And it's hard to check into your mind when that's happening. And actually you just need to back away and get yourself into a quiet space before you can check in and find out, where you're at, because you want to protect yourself. So you want to immediately get yourself out of a situation where there's an animal that's being hostile towards you, or a human. It's best to just not engage with an argument, or, not escalate the situation, but to, and not to start doing that rationalization, or they must be acting, you're not there to psychoanalyze somebody. So if somebody's acting a certain way to you and you feel threatened, then get out of there. Don't go into, like a defensiveness, because as soon as you do that, you're going to set off the defensiveness in the other one, the other person. And anyways, I'm learning just like everybody else is learning, because I've been in these situations where I did the wrong thing, and it just ends up, well, I mean, in the least, it can ruin your day, right? But in the worst, you could get attacked. So, verbally or otherwise. Or they could just become a real nuisance in your life. They could start harassing you, by, I don't know, emails or text or phone or whatever. So, yeah, you don't want it to get to that point. So, that was not part of the topic. Animal communication is part of the topic. So if you like this, then like it, or you can share it. Or if you don't want to share this particular video, at least share the channel, or maybe another video on the channel that you liked more. And I hope you got something out of this, because telepathy is where we're going. And it's not sci-fi, fantasy, that sort of thing. It is real. And we're going to be discovering a lot of unusual things in the next few years. So you might want to brace yourself. And one of them is this telepathic communication and these other abilities that we didn't even know we had. So it actually could be a very exciting time for some people, and other people are going to feel unnerved by it. But hopefully you'll be one of the ones who thinks it's exciting. So remember to like, share, comment, and have a wonderful week with you and your pet bonding. If you don't have any pets, and bond with nature. And have a wonderful week no matter what. And bye until next week.